the career conversation panel with Portuguese language speakers. My name is Maylin Dexy, and I'm very pleased to be your moderator today. We have Angelo Gomes, who is the cabin crew for the in-flight services for Air Canada. Silva, who is the department head and secondary teacher for the Toronto Catholic District School Board. And we also have Jose Rodrigues, who is the founder of Rodrigues Law, and he's also a York alumnus. And joining us, as I mentioned, is Cristina Martins, and she's a member of the Provincial Parliament. Very briefly introduce yourself and tell us about your current role and your key responsibilities within this role.
I've been flying since 1999, so 16 years. Air Canada is not my first airline, it's actually my fifth. So the airline industry is, you can move up or move down, whichever way you want to pursue your career. Current responsibilities, obviously number one is your safety on board. That's our top priority, and anything that follows it, which would be obviously secondaries, would be service and flight service. So our number one priority is safety.
So I'm Silva, and I'm currently a secondary school teacher with the Toronto Catholic District School Board. I've been with the Toronto Catholic District School Board for 10 years, going on 11 now. I'm also hosting the role of department head for the past 7 years. My roles and responsibilities obviously include those of teaching, developing lessons, program planning and assessment of students from grades 9 through 12. I teach in the Department of Languages and Cultural Studies, so I teach courses from core French, international languages, Italian, Portuguese, and Spanish, as well as a course in interdisciplinary studies that I developed in Portuguese and Spanish language and culture, as well as dance arts are in my department as well that I teach from time to time. As department head, I also facilitate meetings, curriculum planning and development with my colleagues, and as pastime activity, I also do some authoring for a publishing company, and we publish French as a second language textbooks.
Hi, my name is Jose. I'm a lawyer at a law firm. I'm a partner, and my main role is to be right in the advice I give to my clients, and make sure that whenever they follow it, that if someone challenges my opinion, that when we go to court, we still come out on top. Besides that, I have to make sure that the business is run smoothly, because it is a business at the end of the day, and make sure that the clients get good service and get good representation.
I'm member of Provincial Parliament for the riding of Davenport. It's a riding in downtown Toronto, for those that don't know where it's located. And I'm sure you're all familiar with Dufferin, so I usually use that as a reference point. So Dufferin all the way south to Queen, and then all the way to the north to Eglinton. And we border the tracks on the west side, and Winona, Ossington, and sort of Dovercourt all the way down to Queen Street. So I am the member of Provincial Parliament for that wonderful riding at Davenport. It's about 102,000 people in the riding that I represent at Queen's Park. And it is with great humility and pride that I'm able to represent their voices at Queen's Park with the various issues that they may have on anything that our government is putting forth, whether it's in the budget, any changes to bills or to legislation, that the voices of my constituents are heard. I'm also parliamentary assistant to the Minister of Citizenship, Immigration and International Trade, with most of the focus being on the citizenship and immigration piece. So in that role, I'm responsible for understanding exactly what's going on and some of the changes that are happening to our immigration and citizenship policies and legislation in the province of Ontario, communicating them effectively to my constituents. I represent a riding that is very much immigrant-based, and it's a piece of legislation that's very, very important to them. And also representing the minister at various events throughout the province when he can't be there. And that's pretty much what I do.
Being persistent, never giving up. It is a very tough industry to get into. There's a lot of competition. Age obviously plays a role. I got in with Air Canada at 35, and I was competing with 21, 22-year-olds. Being Portuguese, obviously, it did help my candidacy with them. They fly into São Paulo and they also fly into Rio. And our subdivision, Air Canada Rouge, they also fly into Lisbon. So having Portuguese as a background and actually speaking the language entitles me to do that route quite often, or not as often as I would like to, but eventually on a daily basis.
I attended York University. I completed a Bachelor of Arts with honors in French Studies was my major, and I did a minor in Geography. At the time that I attended York University, the Portuguese program was in development and it was slowly starting to grow. I did actually start as a double major, and then after my first year I decided that I really wanted to find a way to fit in additional languages because that was my passion, that's what I really was interested in. So I was able to pursue a certificate of proficiency in Italian and Portuguese. Those were sort of my electives that I threw in there. So I graduated in 2005 with the certificate of proficiency in Italian and Portuguese. Participated in a study abroad opportunity, so if you ever have a chance to do a study abroad, a great way to develop your proficiency. I did that for the Italian studies portion of the program. At the time that I attended York, unfortunately, I didn't have the chance to do anything with Portuguese, as again, it was still in development. Then I did the concurrent program, so I started my second year, the Bachelor of Education program, where I did my intermediate senior qualifications in French and Geography. From there, I applied to the various school boards. I was adamant about, and again, I want to echo what Angelo said about being persistent. I'm a Toronto Catholic alumnus, and I want to teach back in my home board. And so that's what I did. I applied to the Toronto Catholic Board. With French being one of my teachable areas, it was obviously a marketable asset having that language in there. But at the time that they were interviewing for positions, Portuguese came up, and there wasn't really many candidates that would show up with proficiency in Portuguese. So my first teaching position was French Portuguese at the high school level, and I was able to develop the Portuguese program at a local high school for a good 3-4 years before I moved on to the position of department head. My last decade of teaching that I've been doing, I decided to return to York, again, glutton for punishment, and I did my master's in applied linguistics, and there I had an opportunity to really explore, Portuguese language and culture and focus on the teaching and the pedagogy behind international language. So for me, languages has always been an important and integral part of the role that I play as a teacher and a department head, and especially being of Portuguese descent, to me was important to continue that legacy and pursue my studies in that language and develop my skills.
Myself, I came to Canada after completing grade 12 in Portugal. When I came directly to York and I did my undergraduate in political science. After that, I also took Portuguese courses at the time with Maria João Dodman. They were developing. After that, I went to law school. I attended Ottawa. And in Ottawa, I made sure I got under my belt as many internships as I could, because that really helps you progress in your career after you complete your degree. So I interned at the United Nations, Tax Court of Canada, Ontario Court of Justice. And when I completed law school, I worked for the Canadian government. I was a lawyer for the Canada Revenue Agency that deals with income taxes. And I worked there for a year, and then I learned what I felt I had to learn, and then I turned to the private side and began my own firm, because one of the things that really drives me to this job is that for me it's the perfect intersection between business and intellectual work. Portuguese has been a huge asset, huge asset, because as a lawyer, we have a big community in Toronto and in Ontario, and as a lawyer, to represent people effectively, you have to understand not just what they're telling you, but the meaning of what they're telling you and the nuances in the language. And when you're representing people that don't necessarily speak English, or even that don't speak it very well, they feel so much more comfortable when they're expressing themselves in Portuguese. And I feel that I can represent them better, I can make their interests go further, and I'm very happy that the community has been such a solid rock in my development, and that I can give back to them by giving them good and solid representation as well.
Being Portuguese, having been born there and loving the country, loving the lifestyle, one of my dreams was always it'd be kind of neat to go and live and work in Portugal. And I thought, well, what can I do? So the company I worked for was a multinational American pharmaceutical company. So they have subsidiaries worldwide, and they had a subsidiary in Portugal. When I applied, I did not know there was a position coming up. I sort of applied on a Friday evening, and Monday morning there was an email from the Human Resources Department there saying, we're interested in you applying. So I went and I worked in Portugal for what I initially thought was for about a year, year and a half. I told my mom, I'm just going to try it out, just see if I like it or not. I stayed for almost 5 years. And I had taken Portuguese at U of T. I took it when it was offered in elementary school, in high school as international language program. So I did not necessarily take any real formal training in Portuguese, but I did take it when Manuela Marujo was just starting and Luís Campos was just starting at U of T back in 84 and 85, and did take Portuguese. And so I always maintained it, and we spoke it at home intermittently with the English. But having that extra language, that knowledge of the Portuguese that I did when I moved to Portugal, just helped me immensely, because I was able to sit into a meeting right away, understand right away what was going on. My reading and writing skills had improved immensely, because obviously what you speak at home is not the medical language that you'd speak in the pharmaceutical industry. So I did have to learn some of those technicalities, some of those words in Portuguese that we're not used to saying perhaps around our dinner table. But it was so easy for me to integrate into just my career, just sort of, it was just a continuum. And so I was there for about 5 years, and during the time that I was there, my career sort of changed. So when I started off in the pharma industry, it was the white lab coat, the goggles, the safety shoes, and eventually it progressed. So I went into regulatory affairs, and when I was in Portugal, did health economics, and then government affairs. So here I am now, not understanding some of the medical terms initially when I moved to Portugal, now actually sitting with the Ministry of Health and their Health Canada equivalent in Lisbon, trying to defend some of the pharmaceutical products that we wanted the government to reimburse. So here I am talking to these government officials. I have 2 young children, so they needed mom to be home. So I stayed home for almost 7 years. During that time, and once the boys were sort of, a little bit more self-sufficient and out of the diapers and didn't need mom around as much, I started getting involved and continued my involvement within the Portuguese Canadian community. And I joined an organization that's still in existence today, the Federation of Portuguese Canadian Business and Professionals, first as a director and then as a president of that organization. And I stayed there for about 3 or 4 years, completely voluntary. It was all that involvement in the networking and the lobbying for the organization, in just meeting different contacts along the way, really sort of set the progression of my next steps in terms of my career. And always having that Portuguese language as a very strong backbone to everything that I was doing, to promoting the business and professional community within the Portuguese Canadian community in Toronto and southwestern Ontario. In 2011, the Ontario Liberal Party had approached me and said, we're looking for someone to run in a riding where 25% are Portuguese. And Cristina, you're so involved in the community. People know who you are, and you've done great work with the Federation, and you've always been such a strong Liberal and such advocate for your community. We'd like you to run. And that's when I ran first for office, was in 2011. I only had a 6-week campaign, so I did not win that time. It was very tough, but I continued my involvement in the community after that loss, and continued my involvement within the Federation. And then, of course, an election came up in 2014, and I won that election. And so here I am today, about a year and a half later, representing a community that is changing. It's gentrifying, it's very diverse, but there's still 25%, more or less, still of Portuguese constituents. And so I'm very proud also to say that I'm the first Portuguese Canadian woman elected to government. And that's a great honor for me. And it's an extremely, extremely great honor to represent the Portuguese community who, as José said, that it's not just understanding the nuances of the languages, but understanding the nuance of the culture, the way people are thinking, the importance of what this is going to mean, what this is going to signify in my community. And I represent a full community. There are lots of people from other cultures, but there is a large portion that is Portuguese. And so that's how I got to where I am today. One of the things that the professors would look at, and I know Maria João sat on that committee a few times, is, okay, here we have an A+ student, another A+ student, or a B+ and a B+, and looking at their CVs. And then what really made a difference in why person A got it over person B was the amount of volunteering that they gave and that they did, the amount of time that they gave back to the community. So if there's something that you haven't thought about yet or you haven't done yet, and it really could be anything, but that type of volunteering is extremely, extremely valuable. So that's one piece of advice I have.
Look around you, see if anyone is doing your dream job. See if you can find anyone, try to figure out what your dream job would be. And then when you identify that person, learn about them. See where they went to school, what they took, what internships they did. And that will give you a path towards that position. And once you learn and adapt that path to yourself, to your personality, to your interests, implement it. Go for it. Don't stop, because there are always going to be roadblocks and people saying that, what are you doing? Just ignore all that. Have your path, follow it. Build networks along the way. It's so important. Everyone you come across, you don't know how you can help them or they can help you 10 years from now. But you know what? Have a good conversation, be personable, and develop those networks, because they will help you and you will help them. And that's how you grow in positions, and that's how you get to your dream jobs.
It is very competitive today. And so one of the things, or a couple of things I would suggest, is to echo what Cristina and Jose mentioned, is volunteering. Absolutely. Get involved in, if you're interested in working in elementary schools, start volunteering in the local elementary school, participate in their field trips, excursions, supervision, artistic activities. If you're in the secondary panel, same idea, get involved with those particular schools and start to, volunteer assisting students. Offering tutoring services could be something as well, to get that experience that you're going to need for an application for the Faculty of Education to begin with, but then in addition, as you're moving forward, that you continue to do that volunteer work alongside practicum placements, for example. I would also highly recommend opportunities that come about, for example, for international teaching. Lots of opportunities come up for that. That gives you a great bonus to put on your resume, and as well, it helps you appreciate other cultures and other ways of approaching teaching. A summer abroad session could be another opportunity for you to have that extra edge that someone else that is also competing for a job in the education sector might have as well. The networking piece. Get to know, ask questions, find out from people what they're doing, how they made it to that particular role and position. I will also be very honest and mention that you might want to have a plan B. That plan A might not pan out, and it's very often now that we have teacher candidates that apply to the school boards, want to start teaching right away, and they are very unlucky and not able to start supply teaching. They have to start as an assistant, or have to start as an early childhood educator, but it's a starting point, and that maintaining that perseverance and desire to want to pursue that career is not giving up, and to continue that. Another last piece of advice I would give is have marketable skills that you can offer. So if you're interested in becoming a primary school teacher, but let's say you decide to get involved in sports and have that extra thing that you can offer the community, that you can service the students with, technical skills, anything that is going to make you stand out, to try to get those specializations or credentials added will help make you a more marketable candidate.
For us, it's also a very competitive industry. It's not so much about marketing and getting your name out there. It's maintaining a clean record. Although it is a very large industry, it is also very, very small. The only thing I can say is, and I went through it, is never, ever give up. I've been turned down numerous times. I just said, no, this is what I want, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to go for it, and I did it.
I would like to welcome Anna Ochoa,
Thank you.
Panelist. She's the Chief Representative Officer for Caixa, Geral, Depósitos.
I would start actually with the importance of the Portuguese languages. Actually, I have a very original path in my career. So I really like to travel a lot, but I had a very difficult choice in choosing what was the theme of my university. I enjoyed so many things at the same time. So I'm from economics, but I enjoyed politics and history and literature and science and everything all together. So the choice for me was very hard. And then by chance, this happened to me. So I was traveling, and there was, an ad in Brussels saying that they wanted people for the bank. So actually, I was glad that I could conciliate my interest in knowing languages, knowing or liking economy, liking history, being part of a major bank that it's open in 23 countries. And all of the countries are also major Portuguese speaking countries where we have a large community of Portuguese people. For example, not only Portugal, but Brazil. It's a major economy where our bank is represented, where the importance of Portuguese in terms of culture, in terms of media, in terms of economic and politics also. It's important to know Portuguese. Angola also, we see in Africa all the growth with this major country in natural resources, in economic capacity, that speak Portuguese also. So for the commercial relationships, for the traveling part, for the social, Portuguese, it is important as a major language. And the more languages you guys are able to speak nowadays, better. English, French, Portuguese, Spanish, Mandarin, why not? It is an important language also of work nowadays. And I really want to grab that knowledge also. So in terms of the career, the most important advice, I know that I'm late, but maybe this was discussed already, it's to do the things that you like. So enjoy it. Enjoy them much as you can in your work. Put a passion on it, because people will feel it and you will feel more confident in your work if you do this. I went to India, that speak Portuguese in Goa, and then I got to the Middle East in Oman, where they have all Portuguese words still. So I was so familiar with this. Connecting to each other, this is what languages can bring.
To integrate yourself as much as you can into that culture and into that society. I think that's how you're going to learn the intricacies about the community, and in being exposed to people within the community to understand the languages. And that sort of doesn't take away the thought of even taking a course in Portugal. We have many universities that partner with universities here in Ontario to offer a bridging program, or to offer that sort of interchange, students here going to study there and students there coming over here. And it's a wonderful opportunity. A lot of the courses will be in English, but you're immersed in that community, you're immersed in the country, you're immersed in the culture, and only then are you actually going to appreciate the value of the language, the value of the culture. And like Anna said, there are Portuguese everywhere. And having that knowledge the way I do now with the Portuguese, and I think Anna also spoke about the connectivity of languages, is so important, but there's a wonderful master's program that the Federation offers as a scholarship with one of the universities there. And it is, I say it's part of the legacy that I left with the Federation, having that sort of partnership with that university, but it is just, so many more students from here are going there that aren't necessarily Portuguese to take some of their courses. So think about that.
Very important to get a foundational knowledge of the grammar and the structure of the language, because then everything you learn after that's just to build on that, but you need that foundation. Immerse yourself in the culture. Fall in love with someone that speaks the language, and really try to get knowledge that way. And finally, go to Portugal or Brazil, or someone that's somewhere that you won't feel in control, but you'll have to learn, and you'll have to figure out how to get around and how to travel in the country. And if you combine all these things, I think you'll walk out of it understanding the language, but also the culture, and feeling more confident when you speak and when you'll need the language.
So I have people all over the world that have connection with Portugal in terms of the commercial point of view, in terms of the relationship that they have with the country. Of course, that we have major contracts in the language that everybody understands, and it becomes the working language of that contract, but all of the rest. And we are able to do so much else on the point to connect with the other. Actually, it's to approach. It's to understand the other and speak it. It's something, the hi, the thank you. The thank you, it's a very important word in any language. By the way, obrigada. It's very important to, make this connection. So I would like to underline what Cristina and what José said, but also the practical point of view of it. Not try to be perfect, but try at least to achieve something. And, we have a bridge, and I'm do a step further and a step, and if the other person do it, we get along, right?
I always tell them there's two things that you can absolutely do. One is participate in the cultural events and activities. We're so fortunate within the city of Toronto to have numerous events and activities that you can participate in, whether it's going to a Brazilian restaurant, whether it's attending a film festival, whether it's going to see a show, going to a museum. There are opportunities where you can see Portuguese alive and really experiencing the culture in that context, because learning a language is also learning the culture, and they're together. You cannot separate them. Like, they are interconnected. So the best way is to be part of that, so that way you get to, again, the networking piece. You meet others who speak that language as well, who have similar interests to you. If it's a sporting event, if it's an artistic event, and that allows you to start conversations, you start networking, you start talking with people, you start appreciating the culture, and it gives you that desire, that nugget of that you want to continue to learn more. And the other piece, having gone through it myself, the question was, what advice can you give a non-Lusophone speaker? Well, I'm not an Italian. I'm not of Italian descent, but I studied, I had an interest in it. And what did I do? I took a summer abroad. I decided to take the program in Bologna, and it was one of the best things I ever did. My Italian skills, because I was forced to speak Italian in that setting. I was learning it there with the locals. I had to navigate the streets. I got lost on a bus on the museum because our professor just gave us the directions. We had to find our way, and ordering food. We had lunch and dinners on our own. So it really was that authentic immersion experience. If you have those opportunities, take them. And there are numerous bursaries available to students to study abroad, whether it's in Portugal or Brazil. Especially, Brazil now, a very important marketable market for us, to really take that opportunity. Whether you're Lusophone background or non-Lusophone, the immersion experience is, I think, would be one important thing for you to consider to develop your skills. Absolutely.
One thing I will say is, for those of you that don't have any Portuguese background, I know Portuguese is a very harsh language that comes across, a lot of it almost sounds like we're clearing our throats a lot. From my own colleagues at Air Canada, and that don't have Luso backgrounds, but they are Portuguese qualified. They didn't go to Portugal. They went and learned in Brazil. The Brazilian Portuguese is a different dialect. It is a lot easier to understand and a lot easier to grasp too. So if you want to pursue this, as much as I love my country, born and raised there, I would say do Brazil. And then go on to Portugal and learn the real language.
You mentioned that you were a part of UTPA for a couple of years. What position did you hold, and did it help you in your career at all?
So I was part of the general membership of that, but one of the things that I took interest in was, and I don't know how many of you remember that, perhaps some of the teachers here do, they did it on an annual basis. They did an event for the community, and it was at Hard House, so it would just pack up. And one of the things, so we had a cultural evening. So it was fado, it was local musicians. It was a few years we brought in some top name musicians from Portugal, like Rui Veloso, Raio Caião actually came a couple of times as well. And then there was always a message part to it all, right? And that was done through a play. So it was, there was one where, and so I took part in the plays. In trying to get that message across. So one of the plays I remember was, my daughter wants to be a dentist. So I was the daughter, I come home, I tell my parents I wanted to be a dentist, and my mother went, oh my God, we need more money to buy the house, to pay the house, that's why we came to this country, you have to go to work. And it was just me trying to explain to them the importance of me continuing on the education, and the reason why they came to this country was to give us a better life. And so there was always a little bit of a message to the community at large. and also doing the outreach. So going to some of the churches within the Portuguese community, and after Mass, having an opportunity to address the congregation to let them know about the importance of higher level education.
In Canada, most airlines will, you'll have better chances of getting in if you have French. Our current president of passenger services, Ben Smith, he was actually a flight attendant, and he's the president of anything that has to do with passenger services within the in-flight service. He's up there, so he's the man in charge. The transition between Emirates and Air Canada, although Emirates is a great airline to work for, I saw the world with Emirates. I can probably tell you, it would be easier for me to tell you what countries I didn't go to than what countries I went to. Dubai is not for everybody. Dubai is all very shiny, it's very controlled, very media controlled. So God forbid you take a picture and you post it on Facebook and it gets out to the wrong hands, you can actually get charged and go to jail with it. There's not much history in Dubai. Any old building that had historic roots to the original Dubai, there's only one original building on Sheikh Zayed Road, which is the Etisalat building, which is the equivalent of Telus. That is the original building that was built on that strip of Sheikh Zayed Road, and when I talk about Sheikh Zayed Road, it's the equivalent of Yonge Street. Everything is torn down to make it all shiny and new. So there's really no history in Dubai.
Okay, do you prefer Air Canada?
Let's just say I miss my days at Emirates. Okay.
I heard that you had gone to Goa. Can you share some of your experiences in Goa and your memorable moments or moment? And the next question is, can you tell me which all parts in the Middle East have you been to?
Mm-hmm. So actually, that was my plan. So I've read everything about Goa, and this was my project because I was in the middle of my birthday, really want to do my first trip to India, and then I got caught by a thing called monsoon. So everything was floated on the south part. I actually had made a couple of very nice contacts with Goa. So in terms of history, if you like to visit all the great buildings that they have, the culture, the food, also many interesting people to learn and to change the experience of the language. It is spoken softly, it is spoken in a different way. And this is the major thing with all Portuguese communities. We speak the same language in different ways, and that's the beauty of it. So really try to make the most of exchanging also the language with other people, because you learn something else about the other's culture. In terms of the Middle East, then I got to India and did my trip, and then I went to Oman. And Oman has an amazing history also in navigation of the Portuguese, a beautiful place where all the sailing, all the sea, so much there, if you got what it's so beautiful. And for everybody that enjoys the blue, the sea, the traveling, the sailors, the boat, there's the thing that all of you should see. They are, of course, for people that like history, the Hormuz strip that represented the major thing in the discovery time with the Portuguese and the Spanish, and of course it was discovered by the Portuguese. And we still have preserved the two Portuguese forts that you can visit. It's an amazing thing to realize the importance of the connection between the lands. It is all land and sea, and everything is connected. So for people that want to see the map, they realize that it's such a great place to be in. Amazing people over there. And some of the words that I've spoke before when I entered, I realized that it is the same thing. So they kept the words. They kept the things that they appreciate on the culture, and they still on. So you will identify yourselves with the things that you are learning now in so many aspects of the trip, of the experience that you got in. So please visit the countries, and please visit all the countries that speak the language. Are you from Oman?
I'm Portuguese going raised in Oman.
Oh, that was great. Oh my God. Yeah.
I know when you say Portugal.
Yeah, yeah.
It's orange.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Programming yourself. It really is just trying to program and switch. Those two languages, because they're mutually intelligible, it is a challenge to go between the two. What I would suggest perhaps is, I don't know, in your brain or somehow when you're in the zone for Portuguese, you're focusing on that sound or associate certain words with a particular sound so that you know that, okay, if I'm in Portuguese, the S's sound like this and this is the word that comes to mind. Or if I'm in Spanish, this is a particular word that's going to remind me that I'm in Spanish. Or, as well, what I would suggest to my students is those that are Spanish speaking, find a Portuguese buddy in the class and use that opportunity to speak with them and talk to them and develop your speaking skills with that Portuguese classmate. And then the flip side, have someone that's Portuguese speaking connect with Spanish, so that way you can practice with the Spanish. So it really is like you're trying to create your own. It's challenging, and I know what you're going through, because I went through it when I was learning Spanish, and I thought the first time that I took Spanish would be easy for me, but because I had done French, Italian, Portuguese, I would technically I'd be using Italian in my Spanish class and be constantly told by my professor, this is not Italian class. And it's just, you start to train yourself and, listening to music, watching TV, listening to the radio in that particular language, you start to tune that sound is associated with this particular language. And now I'm going to give myself a mental break, and I'm going to spend some time with this one, and that's the sound that's going to be associated with that. Like even today, I've been teaching French for a number of years, I will put on, the French station on the radio, and I will listen to it just because I need to hear it, because it's not around me all the time and it's something that's different and foreign. And especially when you become multilingual, you start thinking in different languages. When I get upset, I'm Italian all of a sudden. When I want to be romantic, I'm Spanish. Whatever comes to mind. But I hear you. It's just, again, that persistence and creating a system for yourself, whether it's creating word lists for yourself, or my sister always that find a particular word or phrase that you associate with that has those sounds. Okay, that's Portuguese and that's Spanish, and then obviously the classmates that you can connect with that speak those two different languages and spending time with them.
It was not easy in the beginning, but I can say that coming directly to university and being surrounded by English all the time made that transition easier. At the same time, getting involved in Portuguese associations like UPA or the Tuna made me still feel at home in a foreign place, which gives you the emotional strength that you need to go through the process. So definitely, that's why I was saying, you got to immerse yourself in the language and just focus on getting through your day and you'll get there. So yeah.
A couple of things just to summarize the key tips and advice that has been given to us by our panelists. From what I understand is, well, number one, immerse yourself in the culture and in the language if you're truly interested in it, and I'm sure that you're all doing all of that. Take an interest in things that or note the things that you're really interested in, and ensure that you follow your interests, and opportunities will find you in those. Also do things that you really, really enjoy, and of course, don't forget to give back to your community and volunteer. And also, one thing that also stood out to many of you probably is what Jose had mentioned. Find people who are doing things that you're interested in, and speak to them and investigate, and ask as many questions as you can. We will just do a quick presentation of an award, so I would like to invite Professor Inés Cardoso to introduce the presentation of the Dark Stone Award.
On behalf of Portuguese and Luso-Brazilian Studies, I would like to thank you all for being here today. It's been almost 2 years since I arrived in Canada to teach Portuguese in this wonderful program. It is really my pleasure to teach such a beautiful language like Portuguese that has been shaping for centuries some of the richest and most diverse cultures in the world. Today, it's a very important moment for us. We will deliver the Dark Stones, the Azorian Spirit Award. Sponsored by Caixa Geral de Depósitos, this award recognizes the academic achievements, co-curricular and extracurricular involvement of students enrolled in Portuguese and Luso-Brazilian studies. I also would like to let you know the deep meaning of this award. This award honors José Dias de Melo, author of the seminal novel Dark Stones, Pedras Negras, first published in 1964. Dias de Melo was an important Portuguese writer from the Azores. He is popularly known as the writer of the whales due to his extensive work regarding the whaling industry and the saga of the Azorean people. A staunch defender of equality, dignity, social justice, and freedom, Dias de Melo works have emphasizes the plight of poverty, injustice, and systemic exploitation inflicted on the Azorean people. In addition, due to York University commitment to social justice, diversity, and the global community, this award also speaks to the university's mission and priorities. I would like to address a huge gratitude to our sponsor, Caixa Geral Depósitos, a leading Portuguese banking institution that is also a prominent contributor to community, cultural, and educational development and support. Finally, I would like to announce the recipient of this year's The Dark Stones Azorean Spirit Award, Tali Yanuka Paonessa, who graduated in 2014 with a Bachelor of Arts with honors in Spanish and Portuguese studies, summa cum laude, and member of the Dean's Honor Roll. I would now call Ochoa, Chief Representative Officer from Caixa Geral Depósitos, to say a few words and to deliver the award. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you so much. I will say a couple of words because it is with great pleasure that today we are able to sponsor the Dark Stones Prize. I would like to say a special thank you to a very special person on this award, that is Maria João Dodman, and it is because of her and her tenacity that this award was today achieved, and I'm very happy to do this. A piece also of thank you to Inês Cardoso for all her help and contribution. Also, Ana Paula Ribeiro that coordinates the Portuguese. Thank you so much for helping me being here today. Also, three major persons that helped to actually achieve this award. This is, for us, an achievement of the contributions of the Portuguese and the Brazilian studies on York University. It is a language that I said to our friend over there wants to unite people, not to divide people, to unite people. We are living peculiar times in our history, in our world history today. It is important to speak to others and to unite people and not to divide them. So I would like to break the protocol right now to say something in Portuguese and not in English. I apologize for this. It is a couple of words of Fernando Pessoa that I think that represent this award also. Deus quis que a terra fosse una, que o mar unisse e jamais os separasse. God intended that the earth, it is one. The sea will be united, and never they will be separate. And this represents the spirit of the Ishmael, this represents the spirit of the language, the spirit of Dark Stones, and the spirit that Tali achieved by being one of the best students of this year, Portuguese Brazilian Studies. Congratulations, Tali. Round of applause to you. Maybe you want to do it. That's the right.
Would you like to say a few words to that?
Sure. I was greatly shocked
when I was informed that I'm going to receive this award. Usually you have to apply for awards and things like that, and it just came out of nowhere. And so I didn't expect that. I already graduated. I was already moving on with my life. And then I got notice from Inez that I am going to be the recipient of this award. And it's due to the love of my professors that I have achieved this award. I'm sure it's really their support and encouragement that helped me in my studies and helped me in actually receiving this particular award. I know that. So I'm Israeli, and somehow I found myself in a Spanish-Portuguese degree. So it's possible. It's possible to not be Portuguese descendant or anywhere related to Portugal or Brazil or anywhere and be actually very successful in your studies. And what I would like to say today is kind of out of context, I guess, because we're in a career convention. But I think it's important to say that, and especially since this award is, I guess, can we say dedicated to Diaz Jamel, who fought so much for justice and to fight poverty and all those social topics that we see in a lot of Lusophone literature, like Jojo Mado and so on, that all of you guys will be attending courses on these topics. Studies is not to achieve a career, in my opinion. Studies is not to be successful and make more money. Studies is to fight injustice. Studies is to broaden your knowledge, to broaden your ability to criticize society, criticize what you're used to, criticize your own culture, criticize everything. Basically, studies is just to help you explore the world and broaden your mindset and be able to look at the world in a different point of view and try to make it a better place. That is what I took. That's how I came into university. And then everything else will follow, career and success and money. If it's supposed to follow, it will. But for me, I think it's very important to go into the courses with really wanting to learn and to explore and to learn something new and be able to change the world. So I have this degree, Spanish and Portuguese, and even though I'm not using it in my career right now, it has given me a lot more than a career. And to be able to speak Portuguese and Spanish, I'm sure it's going to be very beneficial in the future as well, even if I'm not using it at this moment. So I really thank my professors for creating the courses that they create, which are so thought-provoking, and for being so supportive that if you really want to learn, they really want to teach you and give you awards. Thank you for the award.